Hello YouTube, it is Ohio Keller here, and today we're looking at my trip from quite a while ago to the Cincinnati Nature Center and looking at all the animals there. It was my first time there, and I went around, photographed a bunch of the wildlife and other animals around the trails and around the Nature Center. It is a really cool place to visit, so go take a look. So our first group is going to be the insects. And one of the first ones that I found was this immature red-headed brush cricket. And it was sitting under common milkweed leaves. There was quite a few of them there. So they were pretty easy to find. Haven't seen one in quite a while, so that was a nice surprise. And this one's a female. You could tell by the little ovipositor there. But sitting on the milkweed on the milkweed flowers, and also was sitting on the leaves a little bit, was this really beat up great spangled fritillary. Looks like it survived hitting a spiderweb because that looks like spider silk there. But yeah, this one's lived a long life and was getting near the end of its life cycle. Along one of the trails sitting high up was a red-spotted purple. Also on the milkweed, right around it, was a webworm moth. I do not like that name. Don't like saying it, but yeah. Now this is a indicator that there are trees of heaven around, because that is our host plant, and that tree is also the host plant for spotted lanternflies. So if you see this moth around, you know that there could potentially be host plants for spotted lanternflies and that they need to be gotten rid of. Along the walls, always check the walls in nature centers near lights, there was a colorful zeal moth. That was a new species for me. So yeah, he was just sitting up along the top of the wall. Probably came in the night before I showed up, and he was just sitting there. Now on one of the trail markers, looks like this was a new trail marker by how new the wood was a common bagworm moth. Just hunkering down there. Don't know if it's pupating or what. I'm not very familiar with the common bagworm moth. But he looks pretty well anchored there. On my way out, I saw something fly right past me and land, and it was a clubbed Midas fly. Now that was with my big 600mm lens, because I had that set up for leaving, because I can't put the macro lens and have the big lens in there at the same time. I need the big lens equipped to the camera, then my macro lens off to the side. Otherwise I would have gotten a better photo of this guy. But he was cool. On the milkweed as well was one of these satellite flies, just hanging out. And then around the paths, you're going to see a lot of these little long-legged flies. There's a lot of different species. I photographed a lot of them. Even though it's not a great photo, it's still important to put up on iNaturalist for data to see what is going on. See when they're out, what life cycle they're in, what stage they're in, what species. Because there are experts out there who know the species, and it just takes time for them to see the posts and identify stuff. Now, the ant experts are really good at identifying bad photos. I took a horrible photo of this guy. Just kind of threw it up on iNaturalist and was like, okay, it's an ant. But this is a bearded carpenter ant, drinking off of some water. Yeah, I got this really cool flight shot of one of the field ants. Now, complexes are interesting because that means it could be one of many species, and yeah, it's part of that group of field ants, and I got it in flight, but it's part of this species, which might be split in the future, so we will just have to see. Now here's an insect I don't see too often. I think this is the third photo I've gotten of it, and I don't have a specimen in my collection, but it was feeding on dogbane. and that is the four-toothed mason wasp. Good to see that around. Now, on this nice coneflower was a brown-belted bumblebee. You can see that it's brown belt right there. That gives it its name. And there's quite a few of them around. That was near the parking lot. On some of the leaves, there were eastern fireflies hanging around. Always good to see fireflies because they're an indicator of good habitat. This year I had a lot in my backyard, so I was very happy to see them doing well this year. And then we have black fireflies. There was a few of those around, and in two different areas. This guy was on an old building, and then this guy was near one of the lakes. Now this was fun. As I was walking along the trail, something flew and landed on one of the trees there, and this was one of the banded longhorn beetles. Don't know what species because there's many species and none have been seen in the park, but none of them were identified to species, so I couldn't really tell. So we're just going to leave it at genus. But yeah, that was a new genus for me. So that's very exciting. Always fun seeing new things. And of course, we can't forget our dragonflies. Blue dasher, very common, kind of everywhere. See, I got a nice photo of that. Now here's one of the plant hoppers. Has a nice ring of silk or fluff or something going on, waxy secretion, something, in its little feeding zone to help protect it from predators. Now this guy was near the brown-belted bumblebee. Many different species in this genus, and it's being reworked right now, so really you won't be able to tell its species. Now on to the arachnids. Here we have one of my favorite orb weavers, which is the orchard orb weaver. Very pretty, very nice webs. Stays out of the way of walking into them. Now the interesting thing about this is like 2 weeks before this, I stopped seeing them in my backyard and in my area in general. They kind of died out for the year. So I never expected to see one when I went down south just a little bit farther. It's like 2.5 hours away from me. And no, there were 2 of them hanging out, so that was interesting to see. And that's why you always document everything, because you could compare what you saw back to your local area and see the changes, and that's just good knowledge to have, and good knowledge for scientists to have. Now this guy was on the nature center itself, where they keep all their injured animals, their injured non-releasable education animals. That is a nice emerald jumping spider, saw a lot of them, and this is a male. Then we have lots of harvestmen around. A lot of different species of them. And you can see there's another ant by that one. Probably a bearded carpenter ant, but hard to tell. Didn't get a good photo. You can see it was right through a lot of branches and grass and other things, but it was a nice photo. And then on some of them were these mites. This was the best idea I got of that. But those are really hard to photograph because the harvestmen like to move a lot, and then your mite just is gone. It's out of focus, or it's really hard to photograph. So I had to take a photo of the whole thing, and then crop it down to this. Now we have flat-backed millipedes. I only saw one, and that was greenhouse millipede. This is an invasive to Ohio. Not a great photo of it again, but it shows that it is here. Yeah, these guys came over in greenhouse plants, and they well, you might find them around a lot of gardens. I could probably go around my backyard right now, around my shed, and find some. But yeah, they've worked their way into natural areas as well, and our native millipedes get outcompeted by them if these guys get really large populations, so not the best to see around. Now for reptiles, I only saw one. I was hoping to see more, but didn't have any luck. But this common snapping turtle was sitting by the dock waiting to be fed, because they have a fish feeder there. You could pay a coin or something and toss out fish food, and either this guy is preying on the fish that come for the fish food, or or he's waiting for free handouts. So, got a really good shot of him. Now for the birds. They have some really nice feeder setups there. And we have some house finches here. Those guys were very common. It looks like they need to fill up the front feeder. But they have a lot of nice feeding setup there. A lot of good birding there, especially in like spring and winter. The time I went, not the best, but there were Arcadian flycatchers around, so I got to hear those guys. Got those on my year list. And then way off in the distance, high up in a dead tree, was a American robin. There's supposed to be a barred owl hanging around the nature center. Never had any luck finding that. I tried to. And that is it. I'm going to be working on another video soon for this, and that's going to be a more recent trip to a park near me. I just have to put together the slideshow. So remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.